Well, welcome everybody on this February 5th night. Kind of cool tonight. But this is a meeting of the Kennebunkport Planning Board, both by Zoom and in person. And the instructions for coming in on Zoom are on the town website. Do we have people out there on Zoom?
We do.
How many?
We have 3 attendees.
3 attendees, okay. Attendance, I know that Larry and George will not be with us tonight, but other than that, we have the rest of the board, and that means the 2 alternates will be voting, Peter and Joe. Okay. The first item that we'll take up are the minutes. Has everybody had a chance to read the amended minutes? Yes? Any changes, discussion? No? Okay, then I'll take a vote. Ed? Oh, I'm sorry,
I would
motion.
move to approve the minutes,
Okay, I'll second that. Go ahead.
and I would vote to approve.
I approve.
I approve. I approve. I approve.
Okay, thank you. With that, I'll take up the agenda. We have 2 major items on the agenda. The first is 240802 Adele's Way. This is site plan review application, and this is a public hearing. So, who is representing Adele's Way?
I am.
Okay, could you come up and give a little synopsis, please, before we open the public hearing?
Sure, up to the,
And identify yourself, please.
Yes, sure. Thank you. My name is Dave Durrell. I'm the executor of my mother's estate. She was a Dela, and it's her way. What she had done was she had basically left that land to the 3 siblings, her children, of which I'm one. And what we are doing is we are presenting a plan for putting a road, private road back in there. I have to apologize, the representative that was going to speak tonight, who spoke last meeting, Jay from DM Roma, came down with the flu today, so he is not able to be here. So you'll have to deal with me in his stead. I'm not as well prepared. Also, he had a plan that he was going to give to you, which you've already got copies of, but I guess it was an unfolded plan, which we'll have to get to you at a later date, because this was a last-minute thing, that he was not going to be able to make it.
So there's an amended plan coming in?
No, it's not amended. It
It's
was
just the-
simply for signatory purposes.
Okay. All right.
Beyond that, I don't really know what its purpose was, but
Yeah, it had to be rolled, not folded, because it needs to be recorded with the Registry of Deeds, and they will not accept it if it's folded.
Right,
Yep.
okay.
thank you. Yeah,
Yep.
that was exactly it. So we will get that to you, of course, but I didn't find out Jay wasn't going to make it until about 4 o'clock this afternoon, so I was unable to make provisions to get it.
Okay, well, I'm not sure that you can answer this question. There's a question that has come up. Galen has suggested there was no pre-development calculations in the stormwater report or concerns with outlets proposed to neighboring property. Can you address that?
Actually, I believe Jay addressed that last meeting.
Did he?
That question was posed to him, and his response, much more eloquently put than I could do, was that basically this was leaving the flow of the water unchanged. This is a road going in, and the road is engineered such that the low area will pass below the road. There is a culvert, if that's the right term, partway down the road, which allows the wetland such as it is to go beneath it unimpeded. I believe that's the same question that was posed last month.
Does anyone else on the board have questions about this? No? Okay. Well, if there are no questions, then I'll open the public hearing for anybody that wants to speak here. And if there's no one in the audience here who wants to speak, do we have any hands raised on Zoom?
There are no hands raised on Zoom.
Go up to the.
Okay, sorry.
Sure.
Identify yourself, please.
I'm John Lesko. I live at 56 Old Cape, which is Dave's mom's house. And I only have a couple of real concerns. First of all, I don't like change. I don't want anything to change, but it's Dave's family's land, and if he wants to build houses on it, okay. But I would like to know what is going to happen further on in the future, as far as the road goes. Is it just gonna be for you and your family, or is it gonna provide access to all the acres behind you?
Can I answer that from here, or?
If you step up to
Yeah,
the
thank you.
microphone, it can be answered.
I don't know if I can answer that 100%, John, because it is the future. What we are applying for here is a private road to service a maximum of the 4 lots. I don't see a way that that could be extended. There is some vacant land behind there, which is not owned by us, it's owned by somebody else. And that person has access to the road, from my understanding, from Frank White's old house, the property further down. So if he were going to develop back there, and I think that's what you're talking about, is that it? I believe that he would access from there. His concern was that he did not have a right-of-way sufficient to access that property.
So your road would not become it?
Absolutely not, no.
That was my first question.
Okay.
Secondly, our well is no more than a couple dozen feet from where I believe the road's gonna go. We already have put a lot of money into the filtration system, and I don't wanna have to spend even more to get a new well dug. What can we do to protect my water?
Galen, I don't have my ordinances with me. Is there a restriction on distance from a well to construction such as a road?
The only restriction you have in the road placement is from the property line, which has to be 5 feet from the property line.
Okay.
I'm not necessarily concerned about how close it's going to be to the road. I'm concerned about what kind of damage could take place with a road being constructed that close to it. I'm not a geologist, but, you know, I understand that when you drive a big heavy piece of earth moving equipment across some ground, it can cause changes underneath. And if there's any blasting that's gonna be done, that could mess with our water as well.
Dave, can you address the blasting issue?
As far as I know.
Up to the microphone.
I just don't mean to push you aside. As far as I know, there's no, and I've gotten price estimates back, there is no intent to blast. As far as anybody knows, there's no intent to blast. It's a fairly level roadway going on top of fairly level ground. So that should not be an issue.
Okay. Other than that, wells, water runs underneath, and it often runs through bedrock, and nobody can really tell where it's going. So, go.
That well is a deep well. I remember when that was drilled. That was drilled into bedrock. That goes down at least a couple of 100 feet.
Well, there comes a point during construction, all of a sudden, our spots all smell like rotten eggs. And what recourse do we have, I guess, is what I'm getting at. Are you gonna help me out and give me a well, or cost on it? How's that gonna work? There's limited places the well can go with the way the house is situated in the leach field and everything.
Sure.
So it's kind of like a legitimate concern for us.
Yeah, I think it's, as the chairman said, construction is done adjacent to wells and roadways all the time without creating damage.
At times there are. It's just a concern. I'm not trying to make things difficult, but, I don't want to have to live off bottled water again.
Well, if there was, I would assume, and I'm not an attorney, but I would assume that if there was damage done to your well from that construction, you would have legal redress, legal ability to seek redress for that.
If you're having a conversation with each other, you need to be at the microphone too.
Yeah, if there's legal regress, but I don't want to have to sue you, man. I just want to make sure my water's going to be safe.
Well, I'm not sure how I can answer that. I don't see that it would impact your well at all. I can't stand here today and guarantee that, just as I can't guarantee the road in front of it won't collapse. I mean, I can't foresee that happening, but I have no way of knowing it. Certainly if the contractor that was doing it through negligence affected your well, that they would be responsible. And the contractors that we're talking to are reputable contractors. We are a ways from building the road, we're certainly a ways from making a decision on the contractor, but I don't see you being unprotected if there was negligence which resulted in damage to your well.
Maybe you want to take this offline and discuss it with the contractor and make him aware of where the well is. That might be helpful. As far as recourse, if there is a problem with the well, I'm not sure that would go to the code enforcement office. No, that would be more of a liability issue, you know, where you would have to have independent attorney take over.
John, if there were an issue with contractor negligence that resulted in damage to your well, I'd be in your corner. I mean, that's all I can tell you.
Is the location of the well identified such that it can be pointed out to the contractors just as a
Yes.
matter of prudence?
Yes, it is. It's very, that's an excellent point, and it's very well identifiable by either John or myself.
And is it right on the property line? Is that what you're saying?
It's a couple dozen feet off at the most, currently, where I can kind of point out the road.
So unless for some strange reason that the contractor was gonna traverse your land, he's not gonna be running heavy equipment over the well or in the proximity of the well. It's really just a concern at this point. There's no plan to infringe on it.
The only water I have. So
No, I understand.
No, absolutely.
No,
Yeah.
that's-
You
You're
might,
right to point it out.
yeah, you might consider flagging the property line, just so the contractor knows where they can go. That particular area especially.
And there's special requirements around blasting too, and I know if it ever went into something like that, I know there's a whole different kind of realm of, and rules and requirements that go with that it's not only wells, but houses and foundations and everything.
Right.
And so, I mean, it's very strictly controlled, and when,
Experienced it last summer.
yeah, when they.
Yeah, that's state law covering
Yeah,
that.
that's state law.
There's also, there are also ordinances within our land use ordinance that covers blasting as well. You would find that anybody that's going to blast would be knocking at your door first to check things out before they blast and check things out after they blast as well, because the liability is very concerning.
That's well covered by current ordinance
And state,
law, and state law,
yeah, and state
Because it's
law.
a real issue, so that's why it's well governed. And like the chairman said, they will be at your door knocking and making sure that they don't cause a problem because they're gonna own it.
So it's also one of the reasons I assume that blasting is expensive
Yeah.
because of all of the overhead that is associated with it. So right now, again, you just confirmed, the plans didn't indicate that it would be suitable for blasting, and you're saying there's no plans in your mind to pursue blasting?
No, not that I'm
would be a
aware
change
of.
plan, yeah.
Not that I'm aware of.
And a permit would then be required.
I'm sure, yeah. I'm not even all that familiar with the provisions thereof because we haven't discussed it.
Yeah, the blasting permit's through the code enforcement officer.
Okay,
Yep. And there's notifications that are sent out.
that's what I figured,
Yep.
okay.
The idea is to raise the road up, not to, yeah, from the bedrock.
So it sounds like most of your concerns would be addressed. They're not going to be digging, they're not going to be blasting, and they're not going to be putting heavy equipment on your property. Your only concern is if they put heavy equipment on their property, is it going to affect your well? Yep. Okay.
There.
Other questions from the board? Comments? Okay. Well, my suggestion is you sit down and talk with your contractor and maybe have the contractor contact the neighbor as well and talk about that. Make sure they know where the well is.
Absolutely. Yeah, yeah, we'll talk as well. Yep.
Okay.
Excellent.
Does that address your concerns?
Briefly speak for my daughter Paige. She's curious about streetlights, Dave.
Okay, there are no plans at this time to put lights. There's no plan for any light. That was addressed actually in the permitting process as well, because that was one of the questions that the board had. And there's, other than putting signage up by the road, there are no lights.
If there were to be lights, we have ordinances that cover that. Okay.
Downward facing. It's better, in my opinion, it's better this way. You know, at the cost of maintaining the lights, it's the driveway right now.
Yeah, exactly, yeah.
Okay. Good. Any other questions? Okay. Hands raised at all? Okay. Well, if that's the case and the board has no more questions, I'll close the public hearing. Okay, and I'll take a motion.
I would move to approve this application.
Yep, I'll second that.
Approved?
I approve.
Approved.
Approved. Approved.
Okay. All right. George is not here tonight. We do have a findings of fact. Do we have copies? Okay. Well, why don't I read that after the next public hearing? Okay. Since George isn't here, I'll do the reading.
And
Okay.
people don't have to stay for that.
No, you don't have to stay for
Pick it up,
that.
sign copies tomorrow.
And we're gonna need the roll plan anyway,
That's
so
right.
it's gonna
That's
be,
right.
Yeah, why don't we trade it?
yeah,
Sounds like a good trade.
yeah.
The finding of facts is read, and it takes a vote to approve it. And then if it's approved and the board members sign off on it, then you will need the plan, and the board members need to sign that. And then basically, once everything is registered in the York County Registry of Deeds, okay, filed there and recorded, then you're free to go ahead.
Okay, excellent.
But just to be clear, the board members will get a note and we'll go up to town hall and sign that plan. You don't have to come to another meeting for that. For
Okay,
us to
so
sign
we
it. This-
Just bring it to the town office.
bring it to
Bring
the
it to the
town
town
office.
office.
Yeah, okay.
We'll take care of it.
Rolled, not folded.
Yes.
Rolled, not voted. Jay knows that if I don't. Yeah, thank you, folks.
Thank you.
Okay. Okay.
Thank you.
Well, our next application is 241-101 Land and Woods subdivision by the Kennebunkport Heritage Housing Trust 2. And Larissa Crockett, I believe, is the agent. And can describe a bit the subdivision.
Sure, certainly. Hello, I'm Larissa Crockett. I'm the Executive Director of the Kennebunkport Heritage Housing Trust 2, doing business as the Neighborhood Housing Trust. And we are here for our public hearing for the preliminary application for Land and Woods, which is a subdivision on, well, it's a subdivision in that it will be multiple homes on the property, but it's being condoized at this point instead of lots. For 6 homes, all of which will be affordable to households earning no more than 120% of area median income. And we are looking for approval this evening so that we can move forward to final application.
Okay. All right. Any Questions, discussion from the board?
I had a couple of questions, and I apologize for missing last meeting because I wasn't here. And going back through, I thought the earlier January discussion was each unit was gonna have its own septic tank and go into a shared leach field, is that?
A shared leach field per duplex unit, so there will be a total of 3 leach fields for the
Right, 3 leach fields, but
separate tanks,
Six
yes.
tanks. All right, because maybe there is newer documentation, but the documentation I saw was still talking about single ones and the stuff signed by James. So is that something that needs to be updated?
I think in the final, it needs to be.
Yeah, in the final, yeah, because in the one that James Logan did, it's got a single septic per building, I believe, still.
Okay, I will speak
So
to,
it just needs to be updated. And then I didn't see it was talking about overhead utilities coming in.
yes, correct.
But I didn't see that where those were gonna be on the plans.
Oh, I feel confident that Walsh Engineering will take care of that in the final plan submission.
Yeah, and again, I didn't know how that impacted if, were any of the trees that needed to be done, because if you're gonna bring in the overhead power lines, you're gonna have to trim and cut back trees for that. And again, I know the trees were an issue, that we identified them, but again, I didn't know how that overlaid with utilities
So-
and the impacts that there may be.
Mike, to clarify, on sheet, is it C, we can bring it up on the board if you want.
Yeah, I'll share my screen.
Yeah, I looked and I was looking at smaller copies of it.
Yeah,
But if it's on there and that, my only concern was how that overlaid with the trees that we were trying to save and if that was gonna be an issue or not.
I don't think the trees were identified on the plan. The road's identified.
The road was
The large
identified.
trees are not identified.
right, so they, the Housing Trust, did a cover letter submission where they explained that they saw this many trees over 21 inches were, within the area of cutting. So they
Yeah,
did
but-
go out and survey, they just didn't map it out because, again, they're trying
And
to,
I was just trying to, did that area of cutting include the overhead utilities?
Yes,
And
we
that
went
was-
up to the stone wall that is adjacent, along the
So
property
this
line.
is sheet C 2.1, and you can see these overhead utility lines are marked here,
If you
and there's
say
a
so.
line up here as well. So they are marked on the plans.
Can you point them out, Nadia?
Yeah.
Just where do we look for
I'm
them?
still looking.
It's a busy chart.
Yeah.
right here, OHU is overhead utility.
Oh, okay,
Oh,
Perfect.
okay, so there it comes in. Okay, thank you.
Yep. There's a lot on the plan.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that was a bit busy.
That's a good thing. But it's hard, especially when you're looking at a small, this helps.
And I saw in the fire chief's letter that it was talking about 1 unit per building, but I thought the agreement was 1 unit per unit for the fire suppression system.
That is my understanding as well.
Okay, because I guess the fire chief wanted 1 per building, so I don't know if that needs to.
We have not yet spoken to the fire chief.
Yeah, that needs resolved, because they, at the last meeting, Patco was here and they explained that the fire suppression system is something a little bit different than what I guess the fire chief had traditionally in mind, and so they
Okay.
had to work on that and resolve that between
Okay.
the fire chief and,
All right, if it, again, I wasn't.
to make sure
here
it's,
the
it's
last one, so that
acceptable,
wasn't-
yeah.
Yeah, we
So
still
that's gonna
need a
be something in
letter on
final
that
plan
one.
design
Okay.
that they will need to address.
And then the other one was, the last one I had was each unit is having its own water well. So you're gonna
Yes,
end up with
6 wells,
six
yes.
wells.
We felt that sharing a well was not wise.
Yeah, and I just wasn't sure with 6 wells and the close proximity, is that normal or is there a potential issue there? Because some of the wells were pretty close together.
We meet the subsurface water requirements of the state of Maine, and we have to trust that our engineers have properly placed the wells to be away from the septic systems and
Yeah,
away from the
there's
buildings.
not a whole lot of room on the site.
Mike, you're worried about flow?
Well, flow, yeah, with 6 of them in the close proximity, are they gonna have the flow they need to meet the fire suppression system and everything else? Because I would assume that there's rate flows required for the fire suppression system.
Yeah, typically,
Werner?
Warner Gilliam, Walsh Engineering, for the record. Yeah, typically there's a capacity amount, that has to be maintained. So, the type of systems that you're dealing with are not systems that, that continually run, like what you would typically think. They're a 13D system, and so they're usually just set to run for, they have to have capacity available for, a certain amount of time based on the square footage of the units. And so, they'll typically in a situation with a well, it's usually accomplished, with a combination of, some storage, that's part of that. So it's not necessarily a well capacity issue at that point. The flow comes through the suppression system, runs for a set amount of time, and then that's, ultimately, likewise, you have a house that requires electricity and a pump and things of that nature, to keep those systems in play. So I don't necessarily see that the well, those tanks will be, the capacity will be there, so I don't see, the well necessarily being an issue.
So you're not relying just on the pump, you've got a well as a reservoir
You've got
that you're
you've got a
working from.
reservoir right there that goes, that typically goes with those systems.
Okay.
As far as the well placement is concerned, I mean, we have them, we have well locations shown on the plan, that are shown as areas that comply with your well exclusion zones. And so those are exclusion areas that, come off of roadways, and that also have a minimum distance away from all the septic fields. So there's a couple, there's locations on the site. Ultimately, final well placement is subject to the discretion of the well driller. They know where they can't put the well, but ultimately the well drillers are the ones that have kind of the final discretionary say on the exact placement of the well based on their experience and where they see are the best and most practical locations.
Well, access on at least one of the wells looked like it was gonna be exciting.
Yeah.
To say the least, but,
Yep.
yeah, but as long as they're meeting the main distances, like you said, away
Right.
from the road, away from the septic.
Right.
Then if it's 5 feet that way or this way,
Yeah.
as long as you're out of the exclusion.
That's
you're
right.
good to
Yeah,
go.
we show areas where, these are clearly the areas where you can't put a well. And then, and beyond that, so that gives them, the location, but, to be able to pinpoint an exact location at this stage is not really practical or feasible. But we show that there are available, I would tell you, there's plenty of available space available on the lot for the placement of the wells.
Okay, thanks. That's it for me.
Don't you have to have some leeway in case you're drilling down where you think you're gonna have a well and it doesn't work very well?
Yeah, no, absolutely.
Can you get there was the one that I was looking at, it was like, well, that will be interesting.
Yeah, no, you're 100% right. There has to be some leeway in terms of the well, the well placement, and again, so it's more typical that you show areas where you don't put the well, like these are exclusion areas. And then beyond that, again, we show hypothetical locations based on available area, but ultimate final location is subject to the well driller.
And then being a condo, you got the flexibility of putting it anywhere, and put it on a postage size stamp.
Yeah, we don't have internal, boundary lines that we have to be concerned with in that sense. But, to a certain extent, a condo form of ownership doesn't excuse you from the setbacks to the septic
Oh,
systems
no,
or
that's
road or
gotta be
anything
there.
like that.
Yeah.
Yep.
But you're not running individual property lines that you gotta play with.
That's right, yep. Yeah, you don't have to deal with individual like easements or things like that then at that point, yeah.
Good deal. All right, thank you. That's it.
Anybody else? Questions? I want to bring up one issue that you did an informal tree survey, and we don't have trees identified on the plan. And we didn't particularly waive the requirement for a tree survey, and I'd like to sort of bring that up now and see if people would like to, members of the board would like to formally give a waiver for that tree survey.
I don't want the trust to incur the cost of hiring a professional to do a survey, okay? Let me just start with that. I do think that the information that you presented verbally last time could be transferred to your plans, to your final plans, without lat-long accuracy, but to show the location of the large trees.
I'm not
Even to be able
sure,
to say, 10 of them are here, 5 of them are here.
they're fairly well dispersed across the area that, we assessed as being
Yep.
spaces. I'm not
Okay.
sure how to accurately or with any sort of,
Again, think broadly here. You have a number.
we do,
You've determined a number.
23 trees.
Okay, and I think a note on there that said, here's the area, and 23 trees greater than this size are dispersed relatively evenly across this area. If that's true, I don't want to put words in your mouth,
I think it's about
would suffice
fairly
for me.
accurate. Okay,
Or, if the case may be that, 2/3 of them are down here and the other third are here, then I want you to say that. But thoughtfully capture what you've gleaned from your experiment, your day-long activity, and capture it on the final plan. And I'm sure someone at Walsh would have a thought as to how those notes could be added, without undue burden to the plan.
So I think,
Werner, I'll ask you.
so I think we need to look at the last application you just had with Adele's Way. So what they did for the clearing of that site was they mentioned within this clearing area, there were 23 trees that met that diameter. So just putting that note would suffice for what you're looking for?
I'm speaking
as a
only for
board?
myself as
As
a
a
board
board,
member.
right.
Yes, it would satisfy
Okay,
me.
so just a note.
Others?
that feels very reasonable and doable.
Yeah, if it were just the trees in the clearing area, if we could just get
Right.
some
Yes,
indication,
yes.
that would be all right.
Yeah,
And again, the clearing area is the roads, the overhead lines, the buildings, and the setback,
Correct.
of this envelope, whatever it is.
Could you get that on the final plan?
We can certainly put a note, if it's as simple as saying, in the areas shown on this plan for infrastructure and house buildings, we have estimated there to be, based on our survey, and have marked them with pink yarn for everyone to go look at if they wish to. We estimate there to be 23
Yeah, I think-
trees.
Okay.
Yep.
Then maybe we should hold off on a waiver on this particular item.
I don't think a waiver
until
would be
we-
needed if we did
No.
that.
Well,
Says a tree survey has to be done, right?
yeah, but a formal tree survey is usually what's indicated.
I'm just,
Yeah. Well,
Survey
that-
means survey,
yeah.
That was a survey.
and
Yeah.
usually means a professional survey. And what I'd like to do is hold off on a waiver until we see that on the plan, and then waive a professional tree survey.
Yeah, I think one of the, what I'm envisioning potentially shows up on a plan is some type of an observation note. I think what's a little difficult in terms of, what without proper, GPS locations and things of that nature, it's not something that we can just speculatively identify and show on a plan. It wouldn't necessarily fit within the standards of what we would be able to stamp on provide on a plan that gets stamped. However, I think what we likely can provide is a note, stating, on such and such a date.
Hand count.
On such and such a date, a site visit, was done, by, and it was observed that generally within a cleared area, there is blank, dot, 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 and a description of it. And I think that's likely the most that we can comfortably put, on a plan.
I would accept a waiver of the requirement for a formal tree survey with a note that an observation is being made on the plan that identifies trees in the clearing area. I think that would work.
Yep. Okay,
Okay.
Okay, and that for the final submission.
okay. Yep.
Okay. Any other questions, comments? Okay. In that case, I will open the public hearing for this application. If there's anybody here that would like to speak, I'll note that we have had several letters, 6 or 7 at least, and they've all been in support of the Heritage Housing Trust 2's plan. So if there's anybody out there that would like to make a comment? No. Okay. How about,
Oh, we've got one coming.
okay, identify yourself, please.
My name is Shannon Dant. I live on Campbell Lane, which is a private lane off Beechwood Ave, about a quarter mile from the site of Land and Woods. And I am a member of the board of the Housing Trust. Just want to put that out there as well. I am in support of this project. My husband is in support of this project. I can't help but notice driving around, there are a lot of very expensive single-family homes going up on Walker's Lane, Old Cape Road. And I think this opportunity to have affordable housing on Beechwood Ave in a great location, if I do say so myself, we really as a town should do this. So, thanks.
Thank you.
Anybody else?
I can switch with her.
Hi, I'm Tanya Alsberg. I am a resident of Kennebunkport only because of the Housing Trust. Otherwise, I don't know where I would live. I live in Heritage Woods and have lived there for 3 years. And I'm also currently a new member to the board. And I could not more highly encourage that we continue building these affordable homes, because I'm a business owner in town. I'm a person who tries to be engaged in our community. But again, without affordable housing here, there's no way in the world I would still be living in the community. And so it's worked for 6 of our families so far, and I hope that this will go forward. Thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Anyone else? Okay. Is there anybody outside on Zoom?
No hands raised.
Okay. Well, if that's the case, then I will close the public hearing. And I'll take a motion to approve the preliminary plan.
So moved.
And I'll second that. Ed,
Yes, approve.
I approve.
Approved.
Approved.
Okay. Preliminary plan is approved. I've been working on a letter for you that will go out. And we'll have that out within a few days, I think. And then basically we'll be ready to hear the final plan.
Okay.
And the time period for, excuse me, I'm losing. The time period for presenting that is up.
Okay, great. Werner actually had a suggestion that he made to us earlier this week that he is going to discuss with you, because I think he better understands the request.
Yeah, so this is it's an application and a bit of a procedural question. There's, within your regs, you have a 30-day time frame between the review of the preliminary application and the final application. And I think, the question is would the board consider a reduction in that time frame so that there's not a full 30-day time frame between, this time and before we can get back in front of the board?
I don't have the subdivision regs with me, nor do I have the state statutes. But I believe the subdivision regs follow very clearly the state statutes. And I'd have to go back and look at the time period that they require. Galen, do you have any?
Yeah, your subdivision regulations just clearly state that a final plan must be at least 30 days prior to the scheduled of the board meeting. Certainly, there is the stormwater management plan that needs to be revised and resubmitted, and Acorn Engineering needs to review that. So that will take some time to review that. So I would just caution you on that aspect, that they will need time to review any final plan submission for that stormwater report.
But their review would start when the submission was made. I think what I'm hearing Werner propose is that if they could have that stormwater plan, the final stormwater plan available hypothetically in 2 weeks, could we start the clock then? Could we get it to Acorn then? Could we, as a board, start reviewing it then?
Yeah, certainly. I think that's, what I'm envisioning is that, we have, so we have revisions to the plan. We have a revised stormwater management report that is close to being, in its final redraft. That certainly once we have it complete, we'll pass that along to the town. And absolutely, the request would be that, and what I'm hearing the board say is that you'd like to have Acorn take a look at that again. And so what I would hope for is that once we submit that to staff, that, that process would begin then, immediately, is that it would be forwarded on to Acorn for their review. And not wait till we get 30 days and then have the board then direct staff to send it on to Acorn and so forth.
It's 30 days before the planning board takes up the final application. But I don't see there's any reason why you cannot submit that stormwater report ahead of time.
Oh,
and
absolutely.
We can get it out to
Yeah.
Acorn ahead of time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
As long as we have the revised plans. I don't know if that's something that Walsh has.
Yeah, so we'll have a set of revised plans that'll go along with the report.
Yeah.
Because there are some revisions that have been made, to the plan, based on their comments. And then I think we should probably also discuss the expectation for, the survey plan relative to the condominium aspect of it.
And again, there has been a change in practice. The board has allowed us to send the planning board application to Acorn for their review during that 30-day waiting period.
Yep.
So that is, I think, going to help with the timeline of reviewing this plan.
So I think that's true, but I want to be careful, Galen, with agreeing with you, because I think the last time we did that, Acorn took it upon themselves to review the preliminary application as if it were the planning board. I think we want them to focus on the stormwater plan.
We do want them to focus on the stormwater plan, but that is connected to the plan in
There
reviewing
is.
the impervious
All I'm saying
surfaces.
is I don't
the
want to,
grading.
I don't, where there are portions of what the planning board wants that aren't related to stormwater, I'd like to not set the stage for Acorn not beginning their work until all of the Ts are crossed and the Is are dotted. I know we asked for Acorn to come back and say which of their comments had to do precisely with stormwater and which ones didn't, and we didn't get a response on that. So I'm still sensitive to them taking a larger role and spending more time on this than we think is necessary.
Just define their scope a little bit tighter than it was in the past.
Especially given the sensitivity to the costs here that we've been talking about.
Well, I think we did on at least one of the applications. I'm not sure whether it was this one or not, and they did manage to not comment on a lot of issues, and I think if we make it very clear what their role is, we just want the stormwater report reviewed, I think they could stick to that.
I hope so. So we're back to Werner's request.
So I think that part of it was that we have a short month in February. So if we were running without a short month, tomorrow, I would send into the planning department our final application, okay? And very shortly thereafter, Walsh would their stuff in, and we would really aim to be at your first meeting in March, because we would have had, enough days to make that possible.
Let me stop you there. I think we as a planning board need a certain amount of time to review the materials. It's not just that the code enforcement office is gonna look at it. And I think a week is not enough, all right? So.
No, a month, right? Because it's February 5th.
So, just take my words, okay? If you're trying to abbreviate this process and be at the first meeting in March, which I think is like the 3rd or 4th, it's the first week. If you were to deliver it today, you've got a month, right? So I think you got a little bit of time to go update the plans.
So you're saying
Update the
2
stormwater
weeks?
survey. I'm saying I personally would like 2 weeks
Yeah.
to look at the large plan and pore over it and think about it.
So we got 4 weeks between now and then?
Yes.
You got 2 to get them to us?
That's
Right.
kind of what we would love to be able to be on your agenda for March 5, if that would please the board.
I understand that.
Okay.
I'm just saying that we need to look at this from a, what are we gonna do with the time? And to just say it's a month, the book says it's a month, I don't wanna do that. I think that's wrong. But I don't think we can say, oh yeah, just whenever you can get it, we're gonna get it on that meeting. I don't think that's practical. This is important. We wanna make sure this is done right, but done as quickly as possible.
I agree with you. And
Yeah.
if we were able to, as a team, provide the information to you, no later than the end of next week,
And
okay?
to do it so well that we
So
can't
well.
possibly
Beautifully.
find
Well,
error in it.
as Werner and I were having this conversation, he made the suggestion, he's like, really, we've done all of the revisions as we've been meeting. So the work is practically done at Walsh, correct? We're really close to having that finished. And it's been done, kind of consistently as we've been having these meetings. So it should be beautiful. It should be gorgeous work.
I understand, but I just heard you say, well, we would get the application in and then we'd get the stormwater report in. To me, it's all one and the same. I want a comprehensive, thoughtful package that you look at and Werner looks at and says, yeah, this is what we want. Now, you're still gonna have some glitches, but you'll have looked at it as a whole and give it your best shot. Don't shoot us stuff as you find it, and then we might as well say, yeah, 30 days. Let's not do that. Now, I think we have a burden to make sure that the state statutes, that we're not violating them, but we can do that within 2 weeks. We can find out.
Well, yeah.
We can determine.
2 weeks is fine. 2 weeks is fine, but there are many of us on the planning board, like George and Larry, that work, and I work
Right.
too.
That's it.
And finding the time to make sure that, this is a big application, finding the time to make sure we look it over thoroughly, so there aren't last minute, we need this, we need that, and you have to go another 2 weeks.
Oh, let's not do that. And you also,
And I think that's kind of the, I think the thought process, right, is that if we're able to get, everything, in to you all within a 2 week time frame, and then as opposed to all right, we've got everything turned in, and then the 30-day clock starts from there. I think what we'd like to do is just, can we abbreviate, instead of 30 days, can we abbreviate it to 15 days, to a 2 week, time
we
between.
have everything by then.
Right,
and
between
it's-
getting
and
everything
that
to you
You're
in that.
comfortable with it in that time.
Yeah,
No,
they're-
the statutes basically say it's when the planning board takes up the application at a meeting. Okay, that's what the implication is. So if you get stuff to us within 2 weeks, that's fine.
remember, the other stakeholder here is the public, and I'm really glad and thank you for not pushing any harder on not having the public hearing this time. You got nothing but good praise out of it, and I think that makes me more comfortable with abbreviating the process. If you'd had a ton of comments today and you got a concerned public, they need 2 weeks to look at this too, right? So it's not just us, but I think you have primed the well, so to speak, and primed the pump. Let's shoot for that.
Right.
Right.
Good,
So
thank you.
just to clarify, so we are going to work together as a team, and if we are able to get everything to you by no later than Wednesday, the 19th at noon, then we could hope to have our first discussion for the final application at the March 5 Planning Board meeting.
You'd have copies that I could pick up at that point, you're saying?
Yes.
Yeah.
Printed copies for all that want them at the town hall,
Galen,
ready to
you
go.
got a stake in this. Are you okay with this thought?
I think there's some outstanding things here that are not rectified, and hopefully they can get it resolved, but
Yeah, but
that's your
that,
prerogative.
you're saying it's gonna be hard,
I just hope that nothing is missed, that's all.
of course. Yeah, okay.
Sharpen your pencils.
This is the plan, and hopefully, everything will be done.
We love a
Yeah,
good
Galen,
plan.
your guys have really done yeoman's work with this new approach of doing a thorough, what I'll call a planning memo. So you're signing up for something,
Yep.
to do something in a much abbreviated time frame. I know it relies on your understanding of what other things are going on in the office, and, as we approach spring, there's more going on in your office, so I know this. I don't take this request lightly. I know you don't either, but.
Yeah, and to be fair, it's just really, it's the request to get back in front of the board, within 2 weeks as opposed to 30 days.
Yeah, but
it
you
doesn't-
you
doesn't
only
mean-
want to do that because it's important that the board approve this as early as possible. So to get in front of us and to have us shake our heads saying, no, this still
Yeah.
doesn't hang together,
Try again.
that's going to work against everybody.
Sure,
Let's
yeah.
not do that.
Yeah, well, we're sensitive to, to the trust and wanting to, get the plans out, and start, for them to get pricing.
And you have
So,
some familiarity with the process we go through.
Yeah, absolutely. So, thank you.
Passing awareness.
All right. We are done with this application. We have 2 other agenda items.
Thanks, Al.
One that's not quite on the agenda, but we can read the FOF tonight for Adele's Way. And then I think I'd like to finish up the bylaws and vote on them, if possible. Thank you. So I'm going to do that. Have to drink water. It's a long one. Yep. You want me to start without you?
Yes, but please be sensitive to the fact that all of these need verbs.
Thank you for keeping.
The first 2 have no verbs, there's another one later.
It's I'll read them with verbs even though they're not there.
Yeah, just
Imaginary verbs. Okay?
You're doing the twist or what?
Why don't I take Mike's mic
I don't know.
and let Mike
Needs
have
to get
this one?
resolved.
Or pass that one, okay. Shall I test?
Yeah, all set, I can hear you.
Oh, okay. All right. This is the Kennebunk Planning Board findings of fact and decision in the application of David Durrell for road construction on Adele's Way, Old Cape Road. Following site plan reviews pursuant to Kennebunkport Land Use Ordinance held on January 2nd, 2025, and a public hearing held on the 5th of February, 2025, the Kennebunkport Planning Board makes the following findings of facts and conclusions, and renders the following decision subject to the conditions enumerated below. Findings of fact are as follows. The applicant and owner of record is David Durrell, 218 Clarks Mill Road, Hollis, Maine, 04042, acting as personal representative of the estate of Adele Jeressen. In a letter dated August 6, 2024, authorizing Jason Haskell of DM Roma Consulting Engineers, P.O. Box 1116, Wyndham, Maine 04062, to act as agent in this matter. The property is located on Old Cape Road, Kennebunkport, Maine 04046. The property is identified as map 12, block 4, lot 6C on the municipal tax assessor's maps. The applicant demonstrated a legal interest in the property by providing a deed of distribution by personal representative intestate for the property recorded in the York County Register of Deeds, Book 19110, page 550, September 12, 2022. The proposed project is a family subdivision which is exempt from subdivision regulations. The applicant has provided evidence that the estate of Adele Jeressen has owned this property for at least 5 years of continual ownership. The applicant has furnished the planning board with individual deeds for the proposed lots indicating the intended recipient, or the grantee, and her familial relationship to the grantor. The individual deeds include language within the deed that prohibits the sale of granted property for a period of 5 years after the date recorded of the transfer to the grantee. In an application dated 27 August 2024, the applicant is proposing to build a 1,000-foot private road with a hammerhead turnaround. The property is located in the free enterprise zone. The lot is entirely outside of the shoreline protection and resource protection zones. The site is 7.6 acres in total size. Applicant requested a waiver from submitting a signage, sidewalk installation, proposed use of floor area and lighting report, section 240, 10.6C, 10, 13, 14, and 15, and the planning board approved those requests. Pursuant to the requirements of Article 1010A of the Land Use Ordinance, Guidelines for Decisions, the planning board shall approve a site plan application unless it makes a negative ruling on one or more of the following identified findings, which would otherwise compel denial. Findings A, B, D, E, G, H, J, and N are all yes. Findings C, F, K, L, M, O, and P are all not applicable. Any negative finding by the board means that the application has been denied. The application is otherwise complete. Conclusions. Article 1010A of the Land Use Ordinance mandates that the planning board shall approve a site plan application unless it makes one or more of identified findings that would otherwise compel denial. And as noted above, the board makes no such findings. Decision. The site plan application identified above is hereby approved. Conditions of approval, if any, pursuant to Article 10.11 and 1012E. The applicant pursuant to 1012E shall notify the planning board prior to the transfer of rights to construct an approved project. The applicant must record a copy of this decision and provide proof of such recordation in the York County Registry of Deeds before any permit may issue or before any construction activity may commence. The applicant shall also provide the town of Kennebunkport a copy of the MDEP permit by rule prior to commencement of any work. Receipt of permits from MDEP is a condition of approval. The applicant shall comply with all terms and conditions of the town of Kennebunkport ordinances, as well as the main DEP approvals. Dated 5th of February, 2025. I'll take a motion to approve the findings of fact.
So moved.
I'll second that. Ed?
I'll approve.
I approve.
Approve.
Okay. That takes that one. Let's get these started. There's one other issue for the board tonight, and that's to finish off the bylaws and vote on the bylaws. If we could do that, can we get them up on the screen?
Yes.
And I'm going to take a quick break before that.
Over to you.
I think we were very close to the end. Do you remember where we were, Nadia?
I was not here at the last meeting.
Yep, so you were at the very end. Basically, I think the last section that we did not deal with was the amendment section where it lists bylaws instead of rules, I believe.
Yes.
That was the change.
May be amended by a majority vote at any meeting, provided that the written text of such proposed amendment was provided to all members no less than 2 weeks prior to such meeting. Do you want to keep the 2 weeks in there, or would you like to shorten it, lengthen it, whatever?
I don't think it needs a time constraint on it. I think we might decide at a meeting it was important,
change.
and we would be able to change it. I don't-
I agree.
Okay,
Strike the 2 weeks.
okay. Then just amended by a majority vote at any meeting, period.
Yeah.
Everybody okay with that? Conflict with other provisions. In the event that a provision of these bylaws conflicts with any Kennebunkport ordinance or Maine statute, such ordinance or statute shall govern. That just goes without saying. If the state statute changes, then
We
basically
lose.
you need a change.
No, we can't overrule the state
No.
or the feds. It's It's most unfortunate.
Most unfortunate, yes, right now. Okay. Is everybody okay with that?
Yeah.
All right. Attachments, I have not attached Appendix A, state goals for land use. This was left in there. You can attach whatever you like in there, or just leave it blank right now.
I don't think we need it, unless somebody knows why we would want it as part of our bylaws.
It's kind of the one above it.
It's like
isn't
we
it?
picked a statute and we're gonna attach it? No,
Yeah.
it's not even a statute, it's a,
Appendix,
Okay. You want to leave off attachments?
yeah.
yes.
Right.
Okay, it's fine with me. Okay. The next question is, everybody in agreement with the bylaws? Are we okay to just go forward with them? They can be changed at a later date if you find something isn't working.
I'm okay with what I think is in there. But I, for one, would love to see a comparison, a word compare, run the tool on this document versus the existing one. And I'd like to glance at that before we say, yeah, this is great.
It's been at least a month or a month and a half since I've been in a session where we've talked about this.
Yeah,
I'd like to review the final, call this the final edit, and, here's the final what we've come to. This is what we started with.
best effort, this is what we came up with.
Yeah, and
Let's
make sure
just
that-
take one more glance, but that compare tool, I mean, there may be some sections where it gets confused, but I think in general, it'll help us.
I just would like to see the final thing all completed in one go. And you have a chance to read it, look at it, and make sure.
Okay. You want to clean it up and get it out to everybody? I don't have a comparison tool with this together with what's out there, so I don't know if you do.
I mean, the current rules and regulations are available on the website, so the age-old compare tool of
Yeah,
two open documents, I guess.
I think that's what,
That'll
I
work.
think that'll do it.
Okay. Can you do that?
Like, do you want me to go through and compare the two?
No, I
For
think,
changes?
I think what he's saying is, can we see the old one?
Oh, right now?
No,
No.
no. They want to see what the,
Where
let's
we
assume that
started.
this is the final draft. We could print the final draft out so they can read what the new ones would be
Ah,
as they're done, and then they can just compare it to what is
Right.
We can send you two PDFs, one with
No.
this and the other one with what you had originally.
So what I prefer is to have two Word documents that I can run the word compare tool on. They're both in Word, right?
We can put them in Word for you, yes.
Yeah,
Mike,
and
you can-
crash 'em. Yeah, I'm good with that.
Yeah, okay, let's try
Okay,
that.
we will send you two Word documents.
Awesome.
Okay. There's one other thing I wanted to say, and that is, in here, I kept the, I think I kept the rule that we elect a chair every year. And we haven't been doing that. With Tom, it was like 4 or 5 years. What I'd like to suggest is that on a lot of boards, there are rotating chairs, and it might be a good thing for this board to do 2-year rotating chairs. And a lot of boards have the vice chair take over after 2 years and basically become the chair of a board. And that works well for a lot of systems. I'm not sure what the Board of Selectmen does. I think they rotate chairs.
They rotate the chair every year.
Every
Well, I
year.
mean, the chair is up every year. It might end up being the same
So,
person. Yeah.
as indicated on
Yeah,
here, yeah,
Yeah,
okay.
and that is selected the first meeting, it's actually selected at the town meeting,
Okay,
who will be chair.
okay.
the GPC also does a yearly chair election.
It's
Okay.
usually in July after the June meeting.
Okay, well, you might want to indicate on there when the chair is elected, and if you want to keep it rotating at a 2-year chair or 1-year chair. Because I think we've gone a long time with chairs, the chair stays on there. One other announcement is that I'm going to be retiring from the board. I'm going to resign after the next meeting, so you need a new chair anyway. Okay, I've just got too much on my plate, and I just can't stay anymore. Okay. So,
But you're here for the next meeting.
I'm here for the next meeting, and you can choose another chair then, or you can choose a chair of the meeting after that. Now, Land and Woods is something that I was case manager
Right.
on, and I will try to outline a findings of fact, but I won't be here to finish it off or read it, and somebody else on the board will have to take it over. Okay?
Okay.
All right. Okay. If that's all, then I'll take a motion to adjourn. Okay, I'll second that. All in favor? Aye. All right, we're off the air.
I'll also not be at the next